Hi, if you are thinking about getting divorced, then you may want to hear my story. My name is Avni, and I am a 47-year-old ex-divorcee who is now remarried, and I've been through the whole gamut of making that decision to walk away from an unhealthy relationship, finding myself alone and on the other side of a divorce, and rebuilding myself piece by piece afterwards. What I can tell you is when I started creating content around just being in my 40s and still trying to figure out life, one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about was my divorce. And I started doing that over on Instagram on my channel, Still Figuring It Out at 40. It's linked in my bio, so you can check out that series there. But it deserved a longer conversation, and that's what I'm here for today. One of the things that's happening is that so many people are on the fence about getting a divorce. And so I wanted to address that directly. The biggest types of DMs that I got from my divorce content was, hey, I think I need to get out of this situation. I'm in a bad situation and I'm not quite sure how to do it. There are so many things at play. There's kids at play. There's finances at play. I know I'm in a situation that I should not be in, and that is no longer serving me, but I'm not quite sure how to take that first step. So maybe I can just tell you about how I took my first step, and we can start there. Firstly, I was in a relationship where my partner and I had been together for like 8 years, and in the second year of our marriage, we went through an unspeakable amount of tragedy that would have broken any other person down. And that tragedy was happening half a world away in India, and both of us were in the US. And so my partner had to pick up and go. And we were apart for a really long time. And during that time, I thought that my partner would be grieving and just dealing with things with their family, because that's who bared the brunt of the horrible thing that happened. But when they came back, I found out that there was much more than meets the eye, and I received some really shocking news. I'm not gonna really go into what I was told to protect their privacy, because some people know my ex-partner, but I will say that what they had shared with me broke the covenant of what we had decided in our relationship was okay and not okay. So when it happened, under the guise of there being this enormous tragedy in the family, I was like, okay, well, this happened sort of like because they had gone through this horrible thing, and it was clouding my partner's judgment and whatnot. So we stuck in the relationship and we tried to make it work. And I think that was like the first mistake, because a boundary had been crossed. I made excuses, and I know it's because I didn't respect myself enough, and I know it's because I wasn't showing up for myself in that relationship as much as I should have been, and I just didn't know any better, right? I only had the relationship models that I had been taught from my own parents, and that's a whole other video talking about what I learned from my parents about relationships. So we just kept plugging through. And if you know anything about Indian wife training, I'm Indian, I was born and raised in the US, but like I had seen my own parents go through their own shit, and they just stayed together. And I know that it was like sort of like a taboo to be divorced. There weren't a lot of people that I saw around me that were divorced that were in our community. So I was just like, okay, we're gonna hang on. And I think we ended up reconciling, and things got better for a little while. And we decided that we were gonna try to have a baby. And when we made that decision, I made it with such joy, because I really wanted to be a mother. I had always imagined that I would have a family of my own, and was really excited about it. My cousins had started having babies, friends had started having babies, and I was quite excited. But in that process, when we started trying, I ended up having 2 really early stage miscarriages. I don't even know that the pregnancies would have registered on the test or anything, but basically I was late, but I was late by a significant margin, like 8-10 weeks. And, one day I was just bleeding really heavily and in pain. And the first time it happened, I just thought, oh, I was late. I didn't think anything of it. Then it happened again. And I realized, oh shit, I'm having a miscarriage. And the second time that it happened, I was inconsolable. I was on the couch and I was having an ugly cry. The type of cry where there is like a visceral noise, ancient noise coming out of you because you're letting go of something so deep and so painful. And my ex-husband walked in at that moment and saw me crying and said what happened. And I shared it. I had a miscarriage, and I think this is what happened. And his response to me was, you would have been a bad mother anyway. Like, you would have been a selfish mother. And so it's probably good that this happened. There was no emotional consolation. There was no, I'm sorry. There was just, well, you would have been a shitty mother. And he walked away, which obviously made me cry even more. And that's when the flip, like, there was a flip and a switch inside of me. And I knew that our marriage was over, but I still didn't leave right away. It took me several more months because, you have a realization. There's like an aha moment. And I think that's also what's happening with people in my DMs. You're having this realization, whether slow or fast, that you can no longer stay in the situation that you're in. That this person just doesn't give a shit about you, in whatever way, shape, or form. And then that gap from knowledge to action is quite large. So I was processing this. I was speaking to some of my friends. I was telling them that I think I'm done. And at the same time, I caught myself also having feelings for somebody else. And I think that told me that my heart was not in this relationship anymore. And so we had to come to India. I was going to be on a fellowship in India for a better part of a year. And it just happened to coincide with our anniversary. And on our anniversary, we were at a park. We were walking around, and that's when I told him that I'm done. This is over between us. And that was, several months later. I think all this stuff happened in like October. And then we were in India in February. And so it did take some time to actually even break the news to my partner. So all this to say that, that distance between head and heart is really long. Sometimes it takes you, as it took me, time to pick up the courage to actually say the thing that is the hardest thing to say. So we ended up being separated for a year. I think we saw each other a couple of times during that. He came to the US. I left my fellowship. I came to the US after I was done in India. By then, I had also started seeing somebody. He had started dating as well. And then we went to the courthouse in the US. There's a process by which you can file on your own. It's all simple. There's no division of assets. We didn't have any of that. Like, we were poor, like freaking, NGO workers. There was nothing to divide, although we did own a house together, but it was really only my name on it. And once we weren't married anymore, that ceased being marital property. So when we were at the courthouse, they just call your name so quickly. He had gone to pee. He went to pee and the judge called our name. And so I went up to like the bench to have a conversation with the judge, and the judge was like, where's your husband? I said, I think he went to the bathroom. I said, well, he's not here. So, any objections? There were no objections in the courtroom, and the divorce was granted. Just like that. It took about 3 minutes. And then my ex walked in and he said, what's going on? And I said, it's done. Like, you were gone. And then we proceeded to go out into the hallway and he started bawling like a baby. And that was it. We were divorced. And I think what nobody tells you is that the actual divorce, like the signing of the papers or the going to the judge or whatever, the decision, the legal decision is not the divorce. Divorce is the divestment of your love and your heart for that person. I think if I look back on that time, I was so beaten down, right? I wanted to be a mother. We had tried, and then this happened. I had the miscarriages, and then I knew the relationship wasn't going to last because of his response to that whole situation. I knew my heart was not there anymore, and even so, I kept running into him in our town. We lived in the same place. We had the same friends, so it became really difficult. And that love doesn't just go away all at once. Like, there were times that I would see him out and I would be like, there's still a part of me that loves him. But it still wasn't enough to keep us in a marriage together. And I think that's the lesson that I walk away from, is that you can love somebody, but love is not enough to make a marriage work. And that is like my first marriage is a prime example of that. And I'm remarried now to a really wonderful partner. And it's not that we don't have our issues, but we work through our shit. We talk. When we have knockdown blowouts, we take some space and we come back together. And that is our pattern we have come to understand and trust, is that there's nothing that can break us because we are a team and we will always come back together to solve things. So yeah, I want to say that, like, for those people that are on the fence, just know that your decision is only the first step in a long process when you get divorced. There's so many other micro decisions, so many other moments where you're going to have to prove to yourself that you are there for you and that your happiness matters. And don't think of this as like the only thing. Maybe this isn't helpful, but for me, it's helpful knowing that this is a process and you do better when you know better. And I continued to do better when I knew better. I would talk to friends, I went into counseling, I did all these things. I got stronger emotionally, even physically. I started working out. I looked really good. I've never looked better than when I got divorced. So know that you will make small decisions for yourself, starting with this big decision to walk away, and that each and every day you have a chance to prove to yourself that you are there for you, that you care for yourself, that you hold your needs in the highest esteem, and that you're not going to let yourself go for anyone, that you trust yourself. You get to prove that to yourself time and time and time again. And that's what I've seen in myself, and it's still happening. I'm remarried and it's still happening. So I would say this, that making the decision and actually walking away is the first part. The rest of it is getting to know yourself. The rest of it is proving to yourself that you trust yourself. And that's what nobody tells you. It's like, okay, you make the decision to divorce and then it's done. No, there's a reason why there's divorce recovery, and there's a reason why there's divorce coaches. You will have to prove to yourself time and time again that you value yourself. And it's your opportunity to retrain yourself to show up for yourself. And so if I can be of any help, hit me up in the comments. But I wanted to share this really freely with you, and I want to continue talking to you. So if you have any questions, pop them in the comments for me. I'm happy to make longer videos. I've been making videos on Instagram, but somehow they're just not filling my heart and soul. I want to yap like this. This is who I am. This is how I talk. So would love to see more of you. Like I said, I'm Avni, I'm 47, I'm still figuring it out at 40 and beyond, and I'm here for you.